Box and the Beard. Today, we've decided that everyone just needs a bit of a break from just all the chaos that's going on right now, because we've had not just a rough few weeks, we've had a rough few months, mate. Like coronavirus obviously, and uni for us being cancelled and having to do everything from home, and then the whole Black Lives Matter thing going through, and obviously that the movement in itself wasn't a bad thing, but it takes up a lot of mental space, and a lot of people have been mentally drained from it, definitely. I feel like it's a good time to look back on simpler days. I think is the way to put it. Back to
Yeah.
sixth form college.
Yeah, to be honest, like as you said, it's been a mentally draining few months, like from all like just not just from the corona aspects, but like just obviously like you said, the Black Lives Matter thing. And obviously it's important, definitely. I'm not saying, it's not. But I do just think sometimes you just need to go back to basics and just take yourself out of it, whether it's doing anything like, and listening to music or whatever. So I feel like hopefully we can use this medium because I feel like we have a nice mix of talking about important stuff, but also being able to sort of chill back. And I think this is going to be more sort of a chilled episode. There's not going to be
Yeah,
any
definitely.
there's not going to be any hot takes or anything. It's just going to
Yeah,
be hopefully some funny stories that can kind of make you laugh and that sort of thing.
yeah. I mean, that's kind of life, isn't it? At the end of the day, like, there's obviously these things that you have to take like super seriously, such as the Black Lives Matter movement, coronavirus, and things like that. But you do still need to take time for yourself, sit back, relax, and enjoy Books of the Beer podcast.
Exactly. I think that's just what you need. That's the three things you need to do in life. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So first off, just to give people overall view, what did you actually take at college?
Oof, well, let's do. Okay. Well, I'll have to. This is a bit of a weird explanation. So, I was actually in sixth form for 3 years.
Hmm.
Because basically, first time round in year 12, I just completely fucked it up. Basically,
Yeah.
to be sort of yeah, to put it simply.
So
So
what was it that happened? Like you got your marks back and they were like U's and stuff.
they weren't U's. It was a D in three E's, which is
Yeah. Not ideal.
pretty shocking.
Yeah.
It wasn't used, at least I picked up, at
Yeah.
least, but essentially what I took in the first time round was I did four subjects, and these were just pretty full heavy subjects, to be honest. Like, so I did English lit, philosophy and ethics, drama, or theatre studies, I guess they called it, and history. So
Hmm.
that's quite loaded. And I know people would say, oh, like theatre studies is a DOS subject. It's not, man. There's a lot of
Yeah.
writing and stuff, and like it's tough. So I did those in the first year, and the D was in drama or theatre studies, and then the E's were in everything else.
Hmm.
So then next time rounds, well, normally my sixth form they didn't let people do this, but I think in the last few years they've started to ease up and they let some people take three
Yeah.
which I did. I think I just benefited me, and I changed up a couple of things. I redid history and theatre studies because I knew I could do those, but I think the reason why I fluffed those is because it was just trying to balance it all and stuff. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
knew I could do those. I was like, I can actually do well in those.
Hmm.
I was doing okay in history before the exams. Like, I knew I could do well in that. And then,
What was your favourite topic? Oh,
well, I
sorry. Yeah.
liked. Well, I was going to say then the other subject I took was media, which I
Oh,
liked.
okay.
Media was cool. And again, it's people say it's a DOS subject. It's really not. There's a lot of actual like writing and like sort of these like practical projects you had to do. So that was fun. Media was always a fun one. Yeah, I liked history as well. History was like, especially if you got like some decent teachers as well. Like year 13 history, I really liked because like it was
Yeah.
teaching was good, but it was also like a bit of a laugh as well. Like I learned and had a bit of a laugh at the same time. Drama was a bit of I did like drama, like the practical stuff. The written stuff wasn't fun, and also I'm gonna say it, but one of my drama teachers well, I'll keep this more clean. I'll say she just wasn't very nice. We'll leave it at
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Really didn't like that woman. And I remember her being like, "Oh, for the predicted grades for like uni and stuff." She was like, "Oh, I just don't think you can get high." She was like, I tried to ask her if I could like push it up to a B, and she was like, "I just don't think you can get it, Mark." And then results day comes around. What did I get? I only went and bloody got a B. So
Oh, there we go.
haters gonna hate. I was actually so gassed, and I made sure to try and find her on results day just to be like. But then obviously she'd be happy about it because it's a student doing well. Like that looks good on
Yeah.
her. But at the same time, I had a massive bit of like smug pie on my face. Like
Yeah.
just
Yeah. Of
funny. It was
course.
funny. It was funny.
Yeah. I took so at our or my sixth form. You started off in year one taking four subjects. Then at the end of year one, you drop whatever one you got your worst mark in.
Yeah, that was the same
Then
with us.
you'd go into your second year, and then you'd finish those last three to get your A levels in them. So I started off with computer science, psychology, philosophy and ethics, and English lit. So we have two courses in common there. My favourite by far was philosophy and ethics. I honestly like if I wasn't to do journalism at uni, I 100% would have done philosophy. Like I think that if I hadn't stumbled onto journalism, philosophy definitely would have been the one for me. I originally went into sixth form thinking that I was going to go into computer coding, but I ended up getting a U in computer science, so that was not the one for me.
I remember you saying. I remember you saying.
I do entirely blame this on the teacher, though. The teacher was an absolute penguin, and like I mean, like I'm honestly.
What do you mean by penguin? That's an
No,
interesting choice of
if
words.
you met him, you'd understand what I mean. Like the way he kind of like walked about and like
Oh,
interacted
okay.
with the
Yeah,
world is
yeah.
what I'd imagine a penguin would be like if you were trying to be a human, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
to be fair, we had a teacher who a lot of us called him the polar bear when he said it in that way as well.
Yeah.
And he actually got convicted for taking pictures of underage girls, so that was a bit of a weird one.
Oh my God, that
But
wasn't where. What
no,
does a
no,
polar bear have to do with that?
because there's no correlation. It's just
Oh,
he's just a bit of a polar bear, like just the way he just looked like a bit
yeah.
of a polar bear. And he was quite like he was a bit chubby as well. So like obviously how polar bears have got that big layer of fat to keep them warm in like the cold environment.
Yeah.
So I always made the joke of like, oh, global warming is clearly doing bits because he's had to move from the from the Antarctic or whatever over to the UK
Yeah.
because of global warming. But yeah, the polar bear was the main animal we had in our school.
Yeah, I mean, if he's a kiddie fiddler, I'd rather him stay in Antarctica, to be
I
honest.
don't think he was. I think he more just took. Yeah, it's not obviously he's not.
Yeah, it's a fine line, I
I'm
guess.
just being. We just want to be accurate. We want to be accurate on the Box and the Beard podcast. Just
Yeah,
get
yeah.
one out there. At least from our knowledge, anyway, it was more. He did some. Yeah, it was very
Yeah, it was
weird. I
more
remember
porn
when
than
it happened.
fiddling.
When it happened, it was very strange. I was in like year 13.
Yeah, no, I mean,
So
that is a
odd.
weird thing to happen, obviously. But yeah, like I love philosophy and ethics, but I don't know about if it was the same for you, but with philosophy and ethics for me, we had an ethics teacher and a philosophy teacher. Was that the
Yeah, we
same
had
for you?
that. Yeah, we had
Yeah.
that.
The problem was our philosophy teacher was actually a history teacher, and he knew nothing about philosophy. And as you know, philosophy is quite like a complex
Oh yeah.
subject. Like it's not straightforward in any sense of the word. Um, and he was also just bad at being a teacher in general. It wasn't just like this wasn't his course. Like in his history, he taught his history A-level students the wrong module for like a
Oh
whole
wow.
term. He taught them about Spanish history when he was meant to be teaching them about English history, and he just ruined them for like the whole of the year. Like a lot of that year's history grades were so low because of him. Um, but we actually ended up getting him fired from the philosophy and ethics job and eventually the history job because of how bad he was. Like there was a full on like
Wow.
investigation put in at the uni about how bad he was. Like it got to a point where I didn't believe that he was actually marking our essays correctly. So in the middle of one of my essays, I just wrote the word tomato just to see if he'd find it. He did find it, unfortunately, which is really annoying. I really wish he didn't. But people would get their exams marked and they'd get an A and they'd be like, what? Like, I really wasn't expecting an A. And then they'd go get it second marked by our ethics teacher and she'd be like, oh, sorry, this is like C. This is C work.
That's
He was
bad, especially
he was
when
like
Yeah.
over marking people to
I'd
make
rather
himself
I'd
look
rather
good.
be undermarked than overmarked.
Definitely.
So
I think most
that's
teachers
annoying.
overmark,
Oh yeah,
especially
yeah,
in
yeah,
mocks
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
undermark, like when you're
Oh,
like being
definitely.
too harsh. Sorry, that's what I meant.
I like that though. I prefer that.
But yeah, it got to a real bad point near the end before he left because um because of like it was coming near the actual like A-level exams. We were getting like after school lessons from our ethics teacher about the philosophy stuff
Yeah.
behind the philosophy teacher's back. Everyone was having to be like super quiet about it because it's just peak for him, isn't it, that someone else is having to do his job because he can't do it properly. And then one day in class he was like getting really pissy at one of the students and went to send this girl out, and she stood up and said, well, if you did your job properly, we wouldn't all have to stay after school today. And he was like, what do you mean? He was like, oh yeah, miss, I'll leave her name out, is having to do after school lessons because you can't teach your own subject properly. And you're just like,
What
what?
a burn!
And everyone
Wow.
in the class was like, no.
Oh, I can
It's
imagine things. I
teaching.
can imagine that as well. Just everyone just sat there like Neil Warnock style, like
Yeah,
hands like what?
honestly, that was the end of that man's career. I think he lasted like a week more.
Yeah, from the sounds of it, it sounds like a man who just wasn't good at his job. As simple
No,
as that.
I think being a teacher, I think a lot of the time is seen as kind of like a safe career. Like, oh, you've got a degree in something now, just teach it. But I think there's so much more to teaching. Like,
Oh, there is.
having that human touch and like human touch is a weird word to say around kids, but I mean like human, like being able to like connect to
Yeah,
humans and
yeah,
be
yeah.
like sensitive and the skill of teaching is a lot more than just having a degree in
Yeah,
history.
yeah. No, my family, we've got my dad's side has a bit of not all of them, but some of them have done at least some form of teaching. Like even my dad's done a bit of teaching, like a little bit when he was in
Yeah.
France for a bit. One of my cousins, he's a teacher.
Hmm.
Actually, one of my other cousins, like his wife, is like I think becoming a head teacher, or whatever. So like, yeah, I understand. Like teaching's it's an underrated art form.
Yeah.
We'll say art form.
Yeah.
It's you know what I mean. Like I've
Yeah, no,
yeah.
it's not as easy as just saying like, oh, this is the answer. People don't learn
Oh
like
no,
that, especially
exactly.
kids.
We used to have like so many teachers like that would just be like, especially for like stuff like PE and stuff. There'd just be teachers who'd just be like, right, just copy this off the slides and then just write it
Yeah.
down and then just just it would literally just be like copying slides.
Yeah, yeah.
That's all it
And
was.
when it for I don't know if it was the same for you, but whenever I complained about like these kind of teachers to other teachers, they were like, "Well, that's how teachers teach, lecturers teach at university," which is just not true. Like
No, it's
lecturers,
not
obviously,
true.
they are covering like a lot more complex issues than what I was at A level, I think. But like they've especially on our course because our course is quite small. They're very like personal with things. If you've got a
Yeah, yeah.
question, you can ask it, and they'll have to explain it in an interesting way. Obviously, they're not getting you up and like running you around the room. Like I don't know if you ever did that in some of your classes in
Oh yeah, like
GCSE.
the active, like yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Obviously, they're not doing that, but like
No, no, but
it's more than just being like, okay, so this is the slides, this is it.
it's a bit more to it than that. I think also they
Yeah,
try and explain a lot of the points as well, a bit more. Like with slideshows, they should, in my opinion, they should always have like the bare minimum, and then you sort of
yeah,
expand upon that sort of
yeah,
thing.
definitely.
But I was going to say, should we? I feel like you said you had at least one funny
Well, yeah.
story,
So
so far away.
I mean, for me, sixth one was the best period of my life, pretty much. It was just I found my like main group of mates, and we just dicked about like all the time. Um, and it came to it wasn't results day. It was like the day. It was like the day after results day, where like everyone came in to officially get their like leaving certificates and stuff. It was a weird day. I didn't even know it existed until it happened. It was very like informal. Like you turned up, you just had to get like this thing. There was a kind of like a meeting with everyone where the head of year and head of sixth form stood up and was like, "Thanks everyone for being so good." Blah 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 blah. Um, and we were there, and because me and my mates we weren't naughty. We were just kind of like we get up to like mischief, if that makes
Yeah,
sense. Like
yeah,
we're just dicking about, and as we were walking out, so we were all driving at this point. As we were walking out, we just saw this plant in like a plant pot, and like it's fairly big. Like I'd say like half the size of me, so 3 foot high, I'd say
that's
roughly.
pretty. Yeah, for a
So
plant,
it's
that's
a
pretty. Yeah.
fairly tall plant.
Hmm.
Um, so we're walking past, and everyone's like, "Oh, should we take the plant?" And this is in like the reception area. Like we want to like keep a memento from our school. Like I went there throughout like the whole of secondary school and sixth form. Like I want to remember this place. Like how do we remember it? Oh, it's that plant. We're gonna take that plant. So we got one of our mates went and like was the getaway driver, and he like went and got in his car and like pulled up like outside where we were about, like outside. You know, like as you walk in, there's like that little reception thing where the little old ladies sit and like, oh, why are you late today? And you've got to say like, oh,
Yeah,
just
yeah,
see
yeah,
my
yeah,
dog or whatever.
yeah.
It was like that area, so there's people sat there, so we had to be quick. So he's like pulled up outside, opened the back door, and he's like engine on, like sitting there, getaway driver. And then there's three of us like grab this plant and like run out of it, like throw it in the back seat. There's like three of us like laying on top of this plant in the back of the car, and we drive off, and like we were like creasing, and then like 30 seconds pass, and you realise you've just got a plant with just like mud all over the back of like,
Yeah.
what am I going to do with this plant now? Like, there's just mud everywhere. So we end up taking it to like one of my mates' garage, and we've sat it in the corner of the garage. We all also realise at this point the plant's fake, so it's not even a real plant. We've just stole some
Oh,
plastic, and I don't know why they put mud in a fake plant, but anyway.
so give it a sense of realism.
Yeah, and then everyone, well, for some reason they didn't call my parents, but they called like the home phones of everyone's house, saying like, "Your son has taken a plant. Could you please like bring it back to school? Like this is school property." And we're all out at the time of this happening because obviously it's last day or whatever, so everyone's gone out drinking. And one of my mates doesn't answer his phone, and he gets a voicemail from his mum, and his mum's like, she's just a very funny woman, and she's like, look, like imagine like a typical Essex mum kind of thing.
Mm.
She's like, oh, I've just got a phone call from the school, and apparently you've stolen a plant. Have you stolen a plant? I mean, can you return it to the school and stuff? Is yeah, you need to hear the voice. The voicemail is beautiful. It's like when on albums they like sample a voicemail, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it could be used on an album, but in like a completely jokes
Oh,
con.
beautiful.
But yeah, we ended up returning it the next day because we didn't want to get done for stealing
Nah, fair
stealing a
enough.
plant.
I mean, that is quite funny. Like, I feel like you got karma in the sense of like it wasn't a real plant.
Yeah,
Like, I feel like part of the beauty of it was like actually nicking a proper plant and like maybe actually keeping it as a souvenir, but you
it was
took a
just
fake one.
plastic.
Just took a fake one. So I've got three, and as I said to you before we set up the recording of this, like conveniently it's one from each year, which I didn't even think about. It just sort of happened that way. Well, I'm pretty sure it is anyway. So first one, in my notes I've labelled it as Dino and the Table. So this sounds boring on paper, but it's an interesting one.
There's a
So
dinosaur in it, mate.
so my mate Joe, he goes by so many nicknames. The
Yeah.
Dino's the main one because he has a dinosaur-like quality about him. He's also a
Wait,
piece.
what's the dinosaur quality like?
Just
Is he got a tail?
certain times when he gets a bit angry, like he's just like it's proper like dinosaur-esque. Like, there's one time we were playing football and someone kicked the ball up in the air, and I saw him like him chasing after the ball and like had his mouth out, like, and that's when I noticed. I was like, oh, he's such a dinosaur. So we call him Dino for that.
Okay.
But also shout out PT Pompey because that's who he is as well. He does some good on Instagram. PT Pompey. I'll just shout him out because I know he might be watching. So yes, I think we were in the LRC. So the LRC, I don't know what they called it. Your sixth form.
Yeah, it's kind of like a computer like library
Learning,
thing.
yeah, learning resource center, like library type thing.
Yeah.
So I was like on one of the computers, like just doing my work, and like he was like, we were in the same freeze, and I think I was winding him up a bit throughout the free, and then I was just like, I did like a list of all his nicknames in one go. So I was like, I have to explain all these nicknames, but I think I went like Pontius, Predator, Dino, Tag, like Dad or whatever, and then just he came over storming towards me, and I like hold on to the pole of this table, and he pulls me, and the table just collapses. I like, oh, it was so scary, man. And then like, obviously what happened was like it broke, and we tried to like fix it, and it was just broken, man. And
Oh,
then,
nice.
so what happened was, the head of sick form like was asking people like how it happened, and I think they were asked. I remember we saw her like talking to this one girl, and me and him were like, oh my god, like we've been snitched on, like, or whatever. And then I think what happened was like she didn't apparently it was about something else. So we were like, oh. Then she came over to Joe and was asking about what happened, and he basically just completely lied about what happened, and it was an awful lie. But
Yeah.
I think because it was him, like we weren't like students who were like, we weren't that bad. Like, we didn't really like,
Yeah.
occasionally dick around, but not do anything like that was,
Yeah, particularly bad.
yeah, just maybe so obviously. And he's quite a good liar, with that sort of thing. Like, and he just they believed it. Basically, what he said was that he'd sort of sat on the table to like move it out to like let someone
Yeah.
through, and it just collapsed.
Yeah.
Which obviously
See,
wouldn't have happened.
on our freeze, we so we had a common room, but like the common room was always so full, you couldn't guarantee you'd get like a seat for all your group. So we ended up just like walking into like classrooms where like no one was teaching, because obviously like it's lunchtime or whatever. If it was a free, there'd be some spare classrooms. And we were there for like one lunch, and this guy comes in, at the end, like the start of next period, and we were all like sat down on the tables, like it could be like the start of a lesson. And he walks in, and I'm like, "Oh, you're right, sir. Like, really looking forward to our music lesson, our maths lesson today." And he goes, "Oh, is this a maths lesson?" I was like, yeah, yeah, yeah. He's like, "Oh, that's weird because I teach music. I guess." And then he started going along with the joke at this point. And then he's like, "Oh, yeah, well, I guess I teach maths in a musical way. Can any of you sing?" And I was just like, "Yeah, my mate Callum here can." And and he was like, "Oh, okay, I'd like to hear you sing." And Callum just stood there like, "Oh, what?" And he ended up singing "The Man Who Can't Be Moved." But like, just he can't sing. He can't sing. It was just such a beautiful thing to see a man who can't sing trying to sing for a
Oh
music
yeah,
teacher.
there's nothing that
Um,
beats it.
the guy rated it. The guy rated it.
Oh, you got it. You have to. Yeah.
Yeah.
The other one that I
That
had.
friend's now Ed Sheeran, by the way. I don't know
Oh, of course.
if you've
Oh,
heard of
well,
Ed
he
Sheeran.
obviously got vocal training, obviously, and he sorted it
Yeah,
out.
yeah.
Yeah. So the next one I've got is this was a funny one. So this is year 12 part two, as I call it, or
Hmm.
year 12 second time round. So I was chilling with my mates from my year. So like when I was in year 12, like I was still chilling with them before they left, and so this guy who's in the year below, who like I quite often like was in the same. Because I only did three like A levels. I had this like thing like my equivalent of a fourth subject was like I had to go into this like sort of silent study type thing and like sit in this room and just
Yeah.
do nothing. Well, revise and do work. And he was there as well. So I knew this guy sort of. Like, I didn't know him that well, but he sort of walks into like the common room like canteen area, and he just gets this like confetti thing, and he like just pops it in as like confetti, like not loads of it, just like a bit of confetti, like goes, and he goes like, "I'm out of here, baby, woo!" And he's like obviously like saying that he's leaving sick form or whatever, because he obviously was dropping out or whatever.
Yeah.
And the head teacher like was so peaked. Like, our head teacher hardly ever came to our sick form because our sick form was on a separate site to our secondary school.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was very rare that he ever came to the sick form site, but he did sometimes. And yeah, the head teacher just walks in like, and he basically then just tells him to like clean up all the confetti and stuff. And he was like, it just completely killed his momentum. It was just like, I don't think I'm doing this justice, but it was just so funny because like you could
Yeah.
tell
Yeah.
in his head he'd planned this, and he was like, "This is gonna be so amazing! Like, I'm gonna go in
Yeah.
there, and like, everyone's gonna be like, whoa!" And everyone's like, I bet he thought he was doing like a really cool like thing, and everyone was gonna respect. And he just got mugged off completely. And then
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
top it all off, when he cleaned it up and left, he then had to come back because he'd left his phone in the common room.
Oh no. Oh wait. I think a similar thing happened at my uni. Like someone oh no, not my uni. Sorry, it was in secondary school. You know when like year 11s like leave and they all like go
Mm.
around and do their like year 11 pranks and stuff. These kids had like come into our like one of our rooms, and like I was like in year 9 or something, and they were like had a boombox and they were playing music and they were like yeah, like just being rowdy, just like they didn't do anything bad. They were just being rowdy and just like it was just like oh, just get out of the classroom please. And one of them had dropped their phone, and they've gone in. Everyone and teachers like get out, and everyone's like, "What are you doing?" And they get out, and then another kid's just like, "Oh, sorry, I've got to come back," and like takes it off the floor. It is always funny when someone has to come back to the crime scene.
Oh, it's brilliant. But that one, I just love it because the one that the story I was telling, like it just, like he had this idea of how it was going to go, and like he obviously thought it was, and then it just completely, absolutely backfired on him. And it's
Yeah.
just the thought of it that just adds the humour to it. And apparently, one group of girls from my year, they didn't hear him properly, so they thought he said, "I'm out, baby," like as in like coming out.
Oh,
So there's a section of people who thought that he was like coming out as gay or whatever, or so that was just funny as well. That's the
that's
beauty of
such a
why it
joke to
backfired.
make.
That's why the beauty of it, how it backfired. Like he had to clean the
Yeah.
confetti up, but like, the head teacher had to go at him. He then had to come back for his phone, and some people thought he'd come out as gay in the middle of the common room. Like it was
Honestly,
a
if I
joke.
was gay and I was going to come out in I'd have to do it in a grand way like that. Just walk into the common room. I'm out, baby. Pop some confetti.
Yeah, man.
Mate, that's a beautiful way to come out.
But I was going to say my final one that I've got. So this is when I actually finally got to year 13. And so I think one of my mates, he basically bought loads of people had bought alcohol and stuff, like even though they shouldn't have and stuff. I think people were like having like like sneaking alcohol and having like sips like during like throughout the school and stuff because there's a thing afterwards where you go to like the pub or whatever.
Yeah.
So one of my mates, he's got like this bottle of champagne or whatever. He must have bought it like in a free or something. And like right at the end, like just before leavers mass, he just like pops a bottle open and he just like downs it. And like just as he's doing it, like head of year and like head teacher come, they see him, and everyone's just like, oh shit, and he just absolutely
Yeah.
hilarious. Like he got into such shit for that.
Hmm.
It was pretty funny. That was pretty jokes.
The most I got away with, I'll call it tomfoolery, was in that computer science class. Like I did get a U, and when I say what the things that happened in this class, you'll understand that I got like why I got a U. But you've got to understand that the teacher let these things happen, and a teacher should never let these things happen. First off, the design of the room was so backwards, like literally. In computer science, obviously everyone's using computers, and the computers were facing away from the teacher, so he would never know what's on our screen.
Oh,
I could have
that's
meat spin on my
suicide.
screen.
That is
Exactly.
suicide.
Um, but so couple things we managed to do in there, like people would get up like the classic like soundboards and stuff, and everyone across the classroom had it. Like someone would click one and it'd be like a moan or something, and then over the other side of the classroom, and like he'd never be able to pin it down to one point because it was everyone was in on the joke. Um, another one, we just got like one of my mates just who didn't do the course just to walk in and sit down at a computer, and just it had a whole lesson in there, and he was just not doing it. Like he just wasn't doing the work, and like he put his hand up and like answered a question but like with the most nonsensical answer because he didn't do the course. He had no clue about computer science. But by far our best piece of work was we got the whole back row to in sync play Adele Hello on each of their computers, and everyone got their phones out with their light on, and everyone was like waving it in the air like, "Well, hello." And he was just like, could you turn it off, please? Could you please turn that off?" And everyone's just like singing it in the back. It was beautiful. Probably one of the most. Honestly, it was just as beautiful as seeing it in person, I reckon.
Oh, I can imagine. To be fair, one proud moment I have again. I think this would have been like year 11. I think we're just in like the lower school like, equivalent of the LRC. That's more of a library, and it has some computers.
Hmm.
But you know how just some things are just contagious. You know, like laughter and like things like that, or maybe even the
Yeah,
common cold.
coronavirus.
But another thing that's contagious is clapping. So like literally,
Okay, yeah.
some of my mates just started like clapping,
Hmm.
in the middle, and then like suddenly like just everyone like just heard it, and then people just started like the whole like LRC was just in applause for no reason, and then like the main guy who was there, he just had to be like quiet, but it was just. It was just like I don't even know how it happened. Like it just started like
What qualifications do you need to be a librarian?
not sure.
Because like, what do librarians do other than like check books out?
I think at least with our school, there was more to it than that. I think there was some technical stuff and sides to it as well. So like with computers and stuff. So I think it depends library by library, school by school.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, no, I don't know. I feel like they're kind of, like if you go to like a generic library. I'm going off on a sidetrack here. I feel like it is kind of just like working at Asda because all you got to do is like check books out like you would like grocery shopping and stuff.
And yeah, and the stock and like the shelf, like
Yeah.
stocking. Like it's a
Yeah,
library.
you're just stocking books, I guess.
I guess it's
Interesting.
just keeping the library updated on the computer as well.
Yeah.
Like,
If anyone's a librarian listening, we'd love to talk to
oh,
you.
we get a librarian on the podcast.
Today I had an idea for a documentary that I might do next year for my dissertation. Truck drivers, like lorry
Oh
drivers, to go
yeah.
across country. Like I feel like obviously you have like ice road trucker, but like I'd be interested to like actually just speak to one on a level and
The
be like, do
American
you
ones would
enjoy
be
your
cool.
job?
American ones would be cool because they have to like travel like literally.
Yeah,
Because America's more like a continent than a country. Like the
yeah,
size of it, it's
it's
massive.
huge.
Right? So that'd be cool. Like some American truck drivers. If you get, I don't know how
Yeah,
against, but that'd be cool. Because yeah, I reckon they've got some like funny stories to
yeah,
tell. Because like, a short trip in America is so different to here. Like
yeah, yeah, yeah,
for us going to Newcastle, like for us, like me going to Newcastle was quite a long trip. But then like 6 hours, that's all right.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Similar to trucks. Do you know what Diggerland is? Have you ever heard of Diggerland?
I actually haven't, but do tell.
I think it's like more around my area than yours, but basically it's like it's exactly what you expect it to be. It's kind of like a theme park, but with diggers. So like you can go on like this ride that's just like a digger, and you just like go around on the ride. It's like a kid's place. It's not like you wouldn't
That
go there
sounds
now.
sick. To be fair, that does
But
sound sick.
the Diggerland theme tune is just like so jokes. It's so like overly cheesy, and it's just like yeah, yeah, yeah. But basically, this guy in my year at college, going back to college, the college thing. Um, Actually, no, this happened in year 11, I think. He basically wrote a script that if you clicked a link, it would open the Diggerland website infinitely, or until you had to like completely shut off the computer to stop it. And he sent it around on a mass email to everyone in the whole entire school. So anyone who got that email would click the link, and it'd come up, and the Diggerland theme tune would infinitely play. And it was just like you could never stop it. You couldn't just close the browser, because every time you close it, like more would open. Um, I think he ended up getting like isolation for it or something.
Yeah, I remember
Because
one of
it was basically just like a mass virus for like the whole school. Obviously,
yeah.
it was nothing malicious in it, but
Mm.
yeah, it still obviously wasn't a good thing.
No, there was
Yeah,
we had similar things in my like people would send over like chain email stuff. I don't remember many of them, but one of the ones I do remember was well, like my mate created this like sort of like I guess like an MSN type message board thing.
yeah,
I won't give away the name of it because I feel like it'll well, I mean, it's in the past now. It's not a big deal,
yeah, yeah.
but just for like sake of it or whatever. Like, but he it was just a chat where like people could just post whatever they wanted and stuff. It was like people were just posting some like very interesting stuff. I don't think he actually got in that much trouble for it.
Yeah.
The big boy one though was when a couple of people, I think a couple of my mates were involved in this. They basically hacked into the school's like security cameras thing.
Oh, wow.
Apparently it was really easy to get into though.
Yeah.
Like
I'm
it's
not
not as
surprised, to be
if
fair.
yeah, it's not as if like the coding was really. Apparently, it was just like they a lot. I think a couple of them did like computer science stuff. So for them, it was just easy to. I remember they
Yeah.
got a lot of trouble for that.
I remember one of the computer science teachers, not the one that I had, like it was an actual valid one, said that whenever he gets caught by a speeding camera, he just pulls over and hacks into the camera and deletes the footage. I don't know how true that is, but like that's such a crazy thing to admit to your students.
That sounds like a Jay Cartwright anecdote.
Yeah, it does. No, school was just so jokes, man. Like there was so many like so many little stories that just are like so ridiculous that they exist, and I think every school has their stories that could genuinely be in like a sitcom.
Oh yeah, there's this. I think another. Yeah, there's so many like, especially lower school, like 7 to 11, like especially is just
Yeah.
like, it's just carnage sometimes. Like some of the stuff that goes on. Like, I think even by like our school, like my school wasn't always necessarily that exciting, but even we've still got some interesting stories as well.
Mhm.
So yeah, I mean, have you got any good lower school ones as well? I feel like especially that year period from like year 9 to year 11 is especially chaotic.
Yeah, I mean, one of them, I've got one which I'm not entirely proud of, because it from the outside in, it sounds worse than it is.
Mm.
But this guy was my friend, so this is it was like friendly banter within groups of friends. Um, Basically, I managed to get a sanitary towel from one of like my mates. Um, so I got that off her, and then I went round and I found a red like pen, and I snapped the pen in half, and then like dripped the ink onto the sanitary towel, so it looked like there was blood on a sanitary towel, right? And then we managed to like through like this covert operation, managed to get this guy to like be distracted. He this guy is my friend. And we popped the sanitary towel in his pocket. So when he put his hands in his pocket, he'd feel this and be like, "What the fuck?" Pull it out, and it's just like a sanitary towel that looks like it has blood on. Um, and he puts his hands in his pockets, and instead of just like pulling it out like that, he pulls it out, like throws it into the middle of the playground, and it just like pops open, and it looks like a bloody sanitary towel. And everyone was like, "Oh, what?" And he just panicked and like sprinted to the toilets, and obviously he's like scrubbing his hands like oh, because he thinks he's got like he had like kind of like red ink on his hands, and I guess he thought it was blood. And he's like, "Oh," and he was like scrubbing it and stuff. And like we like stood up and was like everyone around us, like, because I assume it was the same with you. Like it was just like your whole year would like stay in one area kind of thing. So it was just like our year had seen it. and like we kind of like stood up and was like, that was all fake. It was like it was basically what I imagined to happen at the end of like prank TV shows. Where it was like, oh, everything you've seen here was a lie. This was a prank for MTV Cribs, and then when he came out, everyone like gave him a round of applause, like well done, good sport and stuff like that. But that was by far my best prank I've ever pulled, I think.
To be fair, a joke story that comes to mind was there were these two guys in our school who like, I'll put it this way, they were the kind of guys that like they used to get they used to get the piss ripped out of them,
Mm-hmm.
like by like just pretty much everyone and their dad. You know what I mean? Like they were just like quite often the victims of jokes here and there, and they basically got these two guys. I don't think they liked each other, and I think they basically agreed to have like a fight. You won't be able to see this, but like
Mm-hmm.
the quotations. So obviously, loads of people like gathered round, including myself, because where there's a professional fight on, I'll be watching it. So,
Yeah.
so like they're still stood there, like people are gathered round, and they just literally they're just wandering round each other like in circles, just like
Yeah.
in circles, and it goes on for ages. And then this other guy from our school like just comes out of nowhere in like a proper like gimp mask and like outfit. And he just comes over and they're quite close to this one. They're sort of like standing close to each other. They've stopped circling. They're sort of standing, and then one of them he runs over and he pushes one of them into the other, and the guy just completely falls over. And then someone else who has a football in the hand, like he just picks up the ball, just kicks it right at the guy in the gimp mask. And it's just I think the video's out there somewhere.
Yeah.
I'm sure one
Mate,
of my mates.
school
If I ever
fights
find
were
it,
another breed.
I'll say if I find that video, I'll drop it your way, Ryan, 'cause it's a quality.
Okay.
Again, this explanation doesn't do it justice, but it's.
Yeah, no, school fights were always so crazy. I remember like one of my first days in year 7, there was a fight, and like just in the playground, and like I remember just opening the door to go to the playground. And it's like a little fresh year 7, and then there was this big crowd in front of the door, and I was like, oh, I guess this is just what the school's like. And I was just like walk my way through the crowd, and then I'm just in like a middle of a fight. I'm like, oh, what the hell? Get out of the way. But one of our best fights was there was so these two guys were fighting. I'll leave them nameless, but I'll call them. I don't know what to call them. I can.
John and Paul.
Okay, John and Paul. I could only think of their names. So I was really trying not to say their name. Okay, so basically, Paul had been with this girl called what's her name?
Yoko. We'll go or Linda
Yoko.
or whatever.
Yeah, okay. Paul had been with Yoko, right? And then they'd split up. And now John had got with Yoko.
Right, okay.
And they're now dating. And Paul is just single, right? Paul and John naturally don't like each other off of the mutual Yoko thing. And they start like Paul starts like giving it a little bit to John, like in the playground, just petty stuff, like just kind of throwing things at him, like verbally. And I also want to clarify that John is way more physically able than Paul. Like if you were to match him up in a boxing fight before, everyone would put their money on John.
Right.
So it was bold of Paul to be like taking digs at him, and basically Paul ends up pushing John over the edge when all Paul said was "your mum," and which is a classic like year 9 thing. So then they start fighting and stuff, like just pushing each other at first, and then it's like escalates to swinging. And at this point, Yoko spots the fight from across the playground. She's like, "No, I've got to break this up." So runs over and starts pushing him away, and you can see him like just try like get in between him, like push him. And the next thing you see is Paul. It goes to swing for John, and in the swing, midway hits Yoko.
No!
and she falls to the floor, and she's like, "No!" All like, like that. And she's like, the fight ends like a little bit after Paul and John carry on fighting, but Yoko just on the floor, just like, "Oh no, my face!" And all the girls are surrounded around her, like, "No, are you okay? Are you okay?"
Was there a proper like mark on it, or was it?
No, it was such a pathetic hit, like, but she really made the most of it.
Oh, she proper Italian, Spanish, Neymar, proper Neymar, like
Yeah, you know the was it Cafu who's taken the corner and someone kicks the ball and it hits his foot and he like goes over. He's like, oh, work for Brazil. She went over like that. She did get hit in the face, which is I suppose is
Yeah,
a bit more valid, but
yeah.
she really made the most of it. But it was beautiful. I remember watching that and just being in tears, in absolute tears.
So many of the fights in our school I missed.
Oh,
They
really?
just happened in other parts of the school. So I had like
Yeah,
I've like, encounters that people have told me. Like
yeah.
so I don't know if I'm in the best position to talk about a lot of these fights. There's one time where a couple of my mates had a fight and I was
Hmm.
ill and I missed it. Although to be fair, a lot of my mates who watched the fight got in trouble because they didn't break it up. But a couple of my mates
Yeah,
did step in right near the end, so they got away with it luckily. But a
yeah,
couple of my mates just like were just watching and they got in trouble for it because it was on CCTV
yeah,
or whatever. Like, so I guess maybe I might have not stepped in. I don't know. I can't. It's
yeah,
hard to
yeah.
say because I was bedridden, mate. I was.
See, our school was quite good with like if they couldn't like hard prove that you were responsible for something, you wouldn't get punished. You could get away with like most things. But like oh no, it wasn't John. It wasn't the same guy from the other story, but it was he had the same name. Um, so this is George. So imagine this guy's called George, right?
Right.
And he again is like he's one of those kids. Like I was mates with him. He was safe, but I would never want to be on his wrong side, if you get me.
Oh, we all know people like that. I know
Yeah,
plenty of
yeah.
people
Like
like that.
I'm
Yeah,
safe with him, but I would never try to get on his wrong side.
no, yeah.
And this kid from 2 years below us, so we're in year 11. This guy's in year 9. He just starts giving it to him like constantly, like for over like weeks. And George just keeps saying like, "Mate, could you allow it?" Like this call this kid Zed. Like George is saying like, "Zed, please just allow it. Like I don't want to fight you. If you keep giving it like this, I'm gonna have to fight you at some point." And this kid just keeps going. It's just constant. It's like and to the point of it pretty much being harassment, right? And this kid is like, "Yeah, well, I want to fight you. I want to fight you." And obviously, George is in year 11. He doesn't want to fight year 9. But then same thing happens as last time. This kid pushes him over the edge. I don't know what he said, but he pushed him over the edge was one time in the corridor. And it's actually he's a bit fucked, but George just grabs Zed's head and just smashes it on a locker, and the kid ends up in hospital for it.
Oh
And
my God.
obviously it's peak, but the kid was asking for it. It was weeks upon weeks upon weeks of harassment,
So
and it's
what do you know what happened like in hospital? Like, did they say what? Did he have like a concussion or was it like?
I know he had to get stitches and stuff. Like he was off school for like a week at least. But I think that was a couple of days buffer for embarrassment.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I hope that obviously that was a really horrible thing to happen to Zed, but I do think things like that have to happen to some people. Like this kid was obviously way too full of himself and thought he could beat like he was the biggest man in the world. And sometimes I do think people need something to level them out a little bit, just like to ground them and just be like. And that's what happens at school is these people, especially when they're coming from primary school, they think they're the dog's bollocks, and they go to school and they are put in their place sometimes.
Yeah, I think there are also some people who like they just won't learn until like something like actually physically or
Yeah,
like something happens to them. Like they're not just gonna be like, oh, this isn't the right thing to do because of this or that. They
yeah,
actually has to be an experience where they're like, oh yeah, I can't do this because I'm gonna get battered or even just like even if someone just verbally outwits you, like even that's still a
yeah,
like that even that's still like a big L because like people remember that kind of stuff.
yeah,
So that's kind of the thing, I suppose. That's the beauty of secondary school.
yeah, yeah. No, it's definitely like. I mean, it goes without saying, really, doesn't it? It's such a formative time in your life, and like I said, like some people just need to be told, like, sit down, stop being a dickhead, and just like grow. I have no clue where this kid is now, because obviously he was 2 years below me. I have no clue. I don't actually know where George is either. He ended up with like permanent isolation after that, though.
Oh, yeah, I'm not surprised.
He had to be walked to classes. He was never allowed
Wow.
to just go to class on his own, and it ended up with him getting like really pissy at the school. And I also, it's so joked how like dramatic secondary school was. I remember him like getting really like annoyed one time, being like, "Oh, they think I'm gonna just kill everyone in the corridors." Like, "Oh no, f them, f them," just getting really angry. I remember just being in media because he's in my media class. He just like rolled up a cigarette in the middle of class and just started smoking it, walking down the corridor. And it was like, what is this kid? Like, the balls on it, the balls on it. But
Yeah,
yeah,
there was
he was on.
people.
Despite saying that, he was actually an all right guy.
Yeah,
Just
yeah,
you've
yeah.
got to keep on his right side, and there are people like that in your life.
Oh, I've known plenty of people like that. Like, because I feel like well, both of us were pretty like we're people that I think most people get on with. I've not, I've not met many people where like I've had like a bad impression. I've given off a bad impression. I feel like you're
Yeah,
probably the same as well. So yeah, I've encountered loads of people like that who like I'm calm with, but like yeah, they're like a short fuse or like if you don't want to get
yeah,
on their bad side because they can just kick off like a Saturday at 3 o'clock. You know what I mean? Like
yeah, yeah. I mean, football is coming back.
oh, it is, man. Yeah,
I
man.
suppose we've got to touch on that a little bit.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, like football is. I have you been watching the Bundesliga?
Yeah, I haven't been as recently, but been keeping up. I'm up the Wolfsburg, up the
Oh
Wolfsburg.
yeah, you are. But it just doesn't feel the same watching a game without fans. Like it feels really, really deflated. It feels so like unimportant everything that's happening. Do you know what I mean?
It it kind of does. I saw what you mean. I guess the thing is the problem with the Bundesliga, I think, because people don't, even people who like follow a team, like it's not like they're properly supporting them. So I think that's part of it. Like I think, for example, when the Premier League comes back and say like I'm watching Newcastle or you're watching Arsenal, like, I think there's gonna be more of that emotional investment. So even if
Yeah, definitely.
even if the crowd's not there, it might not be. But I think yeah, with neutral games, it is a bit more. It is a bit strange, but I think at the same time, like I'm someone who like as much as I enjoy like the whole thing of like oh yeah, the crowd and like going like having getting the beers and stuff. Like I also do like like just love watching the skill of football itself,
Yeah,
which I think a lot more people are more just into the kind of whole things surrounding like the
yeah,
drinking and like which I kind of like. But I kind of like a bit of both. So
yeah,
I've been watching some like there's been some good stuff. Like for example, Wolfsburg they play some nice stuff. A lot of the teams like they knock it about pretty nicely. I mean, defending is sometimes a bit questionable in the
yeah,
Bundesliga, but like so a lot of the teams are really nice to watch. Like
yeah,
obviously Bayern and Dortmund, but even like Gladbach, I've seen them play a few times. They're pretty good, as I said, Wolfsburg earlier. There's a lot
yeah.
of like even Bayern Leverkusen. There's a lot of good teams that like knock it about. I think Bundesliga is probably the second best league now behind the Premier League in terms of like the quality of the overall league. Then probably La Liga, but La Liga was I think second for a long time. I think the Bundesliga has stepped up a bit in the last few
Yeah.
years.
Yeah, for me though, for me like the lack of fans is like I can't remember what game I was watching, but like a good goal was scored, and like normally I'd like be like, oh, like what a goal, and like you kind of like you react with the crowd like when you're watching the game, whereas it was scored and it was just like you hear like the ball hit the net, and then they'd be like, yeah, hey, and they'd like run to the corner and be like, yeah, like it just felt so like. Oh, just underwhelming. Underwhelming
Yeah,
is
I
the
get what
word.
you mean.
Everything.
Yeah, I think instinctively I'm still one of those people like if something happens in the game, like even if no one's watching, I'm still very much like, oh, I'm a very reactive person when watching
Yeah.
football. Like, even if it's a game, even if it's safe, even if I had to watch say Brighton Burnley,
Yeah, yeah.
I'd still
Everyone
be
loves
react.
bringing Burnley into
I'd
it.
still be reacting
Yeah,
like that. You
yeah,
know what I mean? But I take your point. Like it's
yeah,
strange. It's not ideal, but I'll take it over nothing. You know what I mean? Because I think a
yeah,
lot of people are getting a bit babyish about it, being like, oh, it's rubbish. Like it's not ideal, but I'll still
yeah.
take
I
it.
mean, obviously, I'll take it. It's just it is something that is definitely it definitely hinders the enjoyment of it. But I suppose as well, when I'm watching the Arsenal game, I will be in my living room with my dad and brother, so at least there is three fans in the crowd.
Oh, exactly. Yeah,
I hope they do
yeah.
the Zoom thing. Have you heard about the whole Zoom plan, where
Oh,
like
look,
they want to Zoom like loads of fans and like play the audio out in the stadium?
oh, that'd be jokes. To be fair.
Like, and that you just hear like, oh, Linda, could you put the kettle on, please? Just stuff like
Yeah,
that
yeah,
at half
yeah, yeah.
time.
That'd be so funny. To be
Hopefully
fair.
they mute it at half time because half time should be so peak.
Oh, they would do. I don't think. I think it would just be in the game context. But you got. It's gonna be hard though, because like, how are people not gonna like swear and stuff?
Yeah, yeah.
Like
I suppose
F
though,
bombs will be flying.
if you've got like 200 people and they're all at like a similar volume, like you're not really gonna hear them that clearly. Do you know what I mean?
Mate,
You're
yeah, I
just
guess
gonna hear them be like, whoa,
yeah.
oh, whoa.
It depends, I suppose. But speaking of Arsenal, I've obviously they've been doing a lot of the like friendlies with other teams and stuff. And I've
Oh,
seen
don't even bring it up.
The Brentford thing was interesting.
Yeah, I
What
mean,
was your
it
take on
happens.
that? Yeah, yeah, that's what I was gonna
It
say.
happens. It's a friendly, in
Yeah,
it. Like,
yeah, yeah.
have you seen the goals as well? Like, they they are pathetic goals. Like one of them goes for the keeper's hand.
The
And
strikes are good for a couple of them, but yeah, I think it's one of those things. Even us, like we beat Middlesbrough 3-2, but we were 2-0 down. I do think what it is like people are saying, oh well, Arsenal are going to lose like 8-0 to Man City when they play them. It's like The reason why it's there's no competition there. It's just a friendly. Like you'd like to
Yeah,
think that if a team like Arsenal actually when they come out of the Premier League because it's the Premier League, they're actually going to play better. It's not as if David Luiz is going to be playing his heart and soul in a friendly because he's not going to risk injury, is he?
yeah. I mean, did you see what he was trying? He was trying to like he had the ball like he was like the last defender and tried to like
Yeah.
chip the ball over the striker. It's just like, what are you doing? Like, obviously he'd never do that in a game.
No,
I don't know. Actually,
you'd
it
like
is David Luiz.
David Luiz is a weird one, so you never know. But
Yeah,
it's interesting
maybe.
with the lower leagues as well, like how they've sort of scrapped pretty much most of it, and the teams are going up, teams are going down, but they're doing the playoffs. I think, yeah, they're
Yeah,
doing the playoffs. So for the championship, they're doing I think what Brentford like. So you've got Brentford, Forest, Preston, and wait, Brentford, is it Fulham? I want to say, yeah, Fulham. And then League One, they're doing the same. Col U for League Two, so up the
yeah.
up.
Wait, are teams being relegated, or is it just like
Yeah,
a?
I think in League One teams are being relegated. I know Bolton got relegated.
Yeah, because I know they were talking about not relegating any teams
Mm.
and just keeping it like and just adding three teams to the bottom, whoever gets promoted.
I think at least in League One they're relegating teams. League Two and Championship, I'm not sure. But I know they're
Yeah,
doing playoffs for all the lower leagues as well. It was funny
yeah.
as well because they gave Wickham had a game in hand in League One, and they were just outside the playoffs. But then they gave them 3 points for that game in hand, so that pushed them into the playoff zone. So I know there's a bit of controversy with that.
Yeah.
And I
I know
know
there's going to be
yeah,
lawsuits and stuff going on. Like,
yeah, yeah.
didn't is it Marseille in France are pushing through a lawsuit? Is it Marseille?
I think I know there was ones in the French league. It might have been Marseille, to be fair.
Yeah, because they were outside Europe spots or something, and they
Yeah,
believed that they could have gone for Europe. Because you forget there's still a decent portion of the season left. Like a
yeah,
lot of
yeah,
things
yeah.
could change.
Well, yeah, it happened in Scotland as well. I think there were some teams that were frustrated about positioning. It's a tough
Yeah,
one, yeah, because you think about it as well in the history of the Premier, like just not even just from the Premier League. I'm sure it's happened in other leagues as well, but I just can't think of any off the top of my head. Like there'll be like teams where like they seem down and out, like in the relegation zone, for example, and they'll just win like 5 games in a row,
yeah.
and like
Well, I think
it's
at Leicester before they won the league.
yeah, they were
Like
rock
the
bottom
season
and
before they won the league, that was like I remember that happening. Everyone be like, "Whoa, that's crazy!" And then when they went and won the league the next season. Imagine if they got relegated that season because of coronavirus. We never would have had one of the most amazing Premier League wins ever,
Yeah,
which
I am
is
glad.
crazy.
Yeah, I'm glad the Premier League is able to come back and that it's not risking like from the testing. There's been hardly any people that have got it, and the ones they have got are sort of being. Yeah, I think
Yeah,
and as the tests have gone on, like less people have got it, and I think
yeah,
now it was down to like one. Last time I
yeah. I
saw
think it was in
something, like
Tottenham, wasn't it?
it might have been. Yeah.
Yeah, scum.
Well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But to be fair, bringing it back to secondary school and sixth form and
Oh,
stuff, but
okay.
mainly
Yeah.
secondary school. What was it like supporting Newcastle in a secondary school, not in Newcastle?
Oh, it's a good. Oh, mate, it was. You know what? I kind of liked supporting a different team to everyone else, in a way, and I think because but unfortunately, we're having like a group of mates who obviously were really into football and stuff. People would talk football. It would always be just top six chat, and it was just a
Yeah,
bit. So that
yeah,
was kind
yeah,
of annoying. A lot. You got the classic thing, and it still happens like even now. So something's never changed, I suppose. But like people they hear your voice, and like then they will find out what team you support. And like people just are baffled by like why I support a team like that's
yeah,
not that's up north but not that good. Like people are just
yeah,
baffled
yeah,
by it. So then I have to explain like, oh, it's because my dad and like his family and all that. And like, but yeah, it's funny how like it just people. It's almost like people like just can't get around that idea. It's quite funny. Like
yeah.
I get that like
I think people respect it more. Like I remember you coming into a lecture and you had a Newcastle thing, Newcastle wallet. And I was like, oh, like you support Newcastle, and
still
you were
got
like,
it,
oh
mate.
yeah, and you explained it. And I respect what you said way more than someone saying like, oh yeah, no, I'm a Man United fan. You're like, why? And you're just like, oh, I just like Man United. And it's just like,
Yeah.
okay, you're not a Man. You like you've just picked them because they're
There
good.
are there are a lot of Man U fans. There are Man U fans that I know, but that's more because like I think it's their parents maybe supported them before for the most
Yeah,
part. So but they live around it. But yeah, I get there are people who just chose to support Man United or even Chelsea. There I know quite a few people who
yeah.
there are
Chelsea's
people there are. I mean, I have because Chelsea's one of the common teams. So I know loads of people who support Chelsea for different reasons. So this isn't all my mates before. If any of my mates who are watching, they're thinking, "Oh, I actually have a legitimate reason to support Chelsea." Like that's
yeah.
yeah. But there are
Obviously,
some.
it's not
There are
everyone. Yeah,
people who I've met so many Chelsea fans in my life. There are just some who like they clearly got into football around 04, 05
yeah,
when Chelsea won the league. So it's like
Yeah.
They stuck by him, to be fair. So
What was the most popular or like most supported team in your area?
Chelsea and Arsenal were the big ones.
Interesting. I
I'm
was like
surprised.
one of, I think I was one of three Arsenal, or no, maybe five. I would say I'm forgetting two, like five Arsenal fans in my year. Everyone else was like West Ham.
Yeah, to be fair, I think it's around Surrey. Yeah, it's normally like the London teams, especially Chelsea, especially like sort of closer to like north, south, like and sort of
Yeah,
East London. Surprisingly, I didn't know many Crystal Palace fans, even though that is technically a Surrey team because
yeah,
Croydon's
yeah. They
technically in
don't have a huge
Surrey.
fan base, really,
They
though.
don't know, but
No.
I thought maybe I think there was one guy in my school who was like a couple of years below, but I thought there'd be more. I had a few Liverpool fans. I don't actually know that many Liverpool fans, but I guess that's because
Yeah,
of where we're from. I know I've known a few more since coming to uni, and like in the year below, I knew a couple of I
yeah,
was mates with some Liverpool fans. I was trying to think, were there any other like unique teams aside? There must have been. I just can't. I think I've just had a bit of a mind blank.
yeah. Most unique I can think of is a Middlesbrough fan in my area. But again, family from Middlesbrough. But I do kind of wish, like, I agree with what you were saying, like, back then that I supported an obscure team just because when I lost to West Ham, like when Arsenal lost to West Ham, going into school the next day would be the most horrific thing, especially because a lot of the kids would know that I may have gone to the game. So, like, they'll be like, oh, were you at the game last night, Ryan? It's like, oh, like, everyone knew, like, I think I was, like, one of the, this sounds big headed, but it's not. But like one of the biggest Arsenal fans in the school year. So like whenever anything happened with us, it would be me that people would go to. Like, oh Ryan, like what was the score on the weekend? It's like, yes, Man United 1-8-2. Come on, like we went through some really rough years while I was in secondary school. So it really doesn't help.
On my side, there was no better feeling than like, especially Chelsea, where you'd
Yeah.
walk in after like the day after like Newcastle was getting some, and our home record against Chelsea is quite good as well. So there's
Mm.
nothing better than just walking into school like cock the walk 'cause you know you've beaten Chelsea and your mates are just looking at you like. And I was never one to be that like sort of flash and like, arrogant about it, like. But at the same time, I'd have a dirty grin on my face and I'd be like,
Yeah.
but I think as well, I think at least in the context of Newcastle, for a lot of my mates, I've sort of helped give the club a good rep, and I think a lot of my mates actually like have like at least fairly not like Newcastle because I've sort of because of me supporting them and stuff.
Hmm.
Not everyone, but a lot of them. I think a lot of people have developed a bit of a soft spot for Newcastle because of me, which is always nice.
Yeah, no, to be fair, I have a little bit. I actually don't really. I actually really hate playing Newcastle. Like, I really dislike your away fans. I don't know why. It's just something about Geordies
Mate,
that
they're
just annoys me.
jokes, mate. I love our.
Like,
I would say we have
honestly,
the
what it
best.
was.
We have the best away fans in the country. I'd say.
Nah, I do believe you're wrong. Personally, like I think Crystal Palace are better
Crystal Palace are up
away
there, but
fan.
I've heard some. I've had plenty of mates who, when like they've seen Palace come to visit their stadium, like sometimes they're good, sometimes they're not. Like
Yeah.
when they're on it, they're on it. But I've heard
When
occasions of them like just not actually living up
mm,
to the hype.
yeah, when you came this year, you were pretty quiet. I remember being disappointed. But I'd
Yeah,
tell you the most overrated fans in the country. Liverpool fans. Liverpool fans are most
yeah,
overrated. Like they'll sing "You'll Never Walk Alone" and then they'll be quiet for the rest of the game.
yeah. I think to be honest, even with Newcastle, like it is more about our away sport. I think in the over the since we've just been dying as a club over the decade,
Yeah,
like St James's Park atmosphere hasn't
yeah.
been
The soul's
rocking
been
in a
sucked out of your
while.
club a little
It
bit,
has been, man.
definitely.
It really has been. And I think, but the away support is always cracking. Like, I remember being 5-0 down, watching us being 5-0 down to Leicester on the telly, and you could still hear the Newcastle fans just
Yeah,
singing.
yeah,
Like, that just sort of was like, oh, yeah, we really deserve better than this, man. Like,
yeah,
it's just frustrating.
yeah. It'd be interesting to see if you do actually ever get a takeover because you
Maybe,
have a
maybe
good
not.
fan base to build on.
I mean, yeah, Newcastle's like it's a one club city, really. Like, it's in this like the stadium's in the center of the city.
Yeah.
Whether people would want to admit it or not, I'd say we're a big club. I mean, we haven't won a trophy in donkey's years, but like we're still
I
in the
mean,
top. We're
I
still
mean,
in
it
the top
depends on your
ten.
definition
Well,
of big in it.
we're still in the top 10 for most trophies won of English teams, and we
Yeah,
haven't. So that says a lot to me. I think,
yeah,
especially in terms of like the size of like our fan base as well. Like and at least and as well in the history of the Premier League, we have competed for the title and we've got into Europe, like Champions League and Europa League. So it's like it's not as if we've
yeah,
but yeah,
yeah. I'd say right in this current period of time, you're like 15 to 10th biggest club in England. I'd say maybe.
Yeah,
Like in
we're
that
definitely up.
area
We're definitely
ballpark.
up.
Obviously, I'd have to think about it
We're
a little
definitely up
bit
there.
deeper.
We're definitely up
But
there, I
yeah,
think.
yeah, you're not quite top tier. You're not.
No, I
I
think
don't think
we're a
anyone
big
will
club,
ever.
not we're not a big club. We're a big club, not like a massive club. I think
Yeah,
there's
yeah,
a difference in that.
yeah, definitely. I don't think anyone's ever going to get close to Man United and Liverpool.
Yeah, they're I'd say it's those two, and then Arsenal's probably third. To be honest,
Yeah,
I know a lot of Chelsea fans be bitter about that, but Arsenal is still,
yeah,
I'd say, overall bigger than
yeah. I mean,
Chelsea.
Chelsea were invented in 2004, so like we can't.
But I mean, Chelsea do have some history as well, and I think
Yeah,
they're slowly becoming one of the biggest clubs. To be fair,
yeah. No, they are becoming. They're definitely. I'd say like fourth. I'd say.
they've
I
won so many
don't.
trophies in the in the 2010s especially. Like they
Yeah,
hoovered up the FA Cups and they won some league titles as well. Like Chelsea have slowly becoming like a very massive club, I think.
yeah, and they're investing well at the moment. They're getting a bit scary, which is a bit annoying.
Oh yeah, exactly. I think Chelsea, especially with a manager like Lampard, who's not just bringing in good players, but he's got the ambition of playing young kids as well,
Yeah,
which
I'm
Chelsea
not
haven't done for
convinced on
so long.
Lampard, but
I think he's. I mean, it's it's a year in, and he's.
yeah, he wasn't particularly great at Derby though.
He wasn't, but at the same
Like
time, I feel like
I think one of the main reasons they lost that playoff final was because of Lampard. The team he picked was like so like obviously he had some sort of vision in his head and maybe it just didn't work out and that's what happens as a manager. But it would just seem like such a weird selection to pick.
I do
But,
think as well though with they were playing Villa in the final, and Villa like from the second half of that season pretty much just won nearly all their games. Like they just hit this run of form and they just kept winning. They went from like mid-table and just shot up into the playoffs. So
yeah,
they had all this momentum with them. So then and they beat West Brom. Like they were just. I think that's part of what it was. I think Villa just had so much momentum behind them, and
yeah.
Villa as well. Like outplayed them. I thought. Like
Oh yeah, definitely. But that's what I mean. Like,
it got close near the end, but I think
yeah, the reason why it got close near the end was because Frank Lampard made the changes that he should have just started with. Like he started Tom Huddleston in midfield. That man is the slowest man I've ever seen in my life. But in the game before that, he got subbed on. He got subbed on the 80th minute. By the time it reached the 90th minute, he'd only just reached the halfway line. Like he is the slowest man I've ever seen play football ever.
he is. Yeah.
At one point, he tried to turn round, and by the time that he'd turned round, the ball had gone to the other side of him, and he had to do another turn. Mate, that man was so slow. I remember he used to. Remember when obviously he played for Tottenham. Oh, we won't talk about that, but when he scored against us for Hull
Yeah.
in the FA Cup, and that's like my main memory of him. And he was like on the tail end of his career, and he was a decent player at that point. But mate, he's so past his prime now. He's just too slow.
Yeah, I think my main Tom Huddleston memory is like that banging goal he scored for Spurs against Man City at now the Etihad, but I don't know if it was called the Etihad back then. It might actually probably would have been, but he scored like a quality goal.
Yeah, yeah, he scored some bangers.
He has, man. He was one of those players a lot of people thought was going to be quite good, and he just never. I think
Yeah,
partly injuries, I think was if I remember correctly.
yeah, yeah. No, he scored some bangers. It's a shame he played for the scum, but
Can't
yeah,
have it all.
yeah, it's hard. It's hard to look past those kind of things. The only Tottenham player that I will ever like is Peter Crouch.
Sol Campbell.
Oh, and Sol Campbell. Yeah, Sol Campbell to an extent. I don't love Sol Campbell.
Well, he's a quality player. Like he's a bit of a
Yeah,
strange bloke, I think.
Spurs best captain of all time.
Yeah, he's up there. To be fair,
Yeah, which is so funny.
that whole debacle was. I wasn't a lot. I don't remember it, but like knowing the whole context of it.
Yeah, it's just such a part. Like I can't believe that ever happened. Imagine that happening now. It's like Harry Kane coming to us just for free.
You know what? He did support Arsenal as a kid, didn't he? So who even knows? Who even
I
knows?
wouldn't want him. I think Kane is my least favorite player of all time. I just have like such a hate for him.
What? Just because he scores goals?
Well, because he's like Tottenham's like golden boy.
He's the poster boy for Tottenham, isn't he?
Yeah, But
Yeah.
he's also the poster boy for England. So like when the World Cup was going on, we'd score and I'd be like, yes, and it'd be like, why is it Harry Kane? Like it's just like, oh, play Welbeck, like anyone but Harry
To be
Kane.
fair, you know what? Like for me in the World Cup, like Pickford was still technically a Sunderland player, but I just got behind him.
Yeah,
I knew he was gonna move, obviously, because they'd been relegated. Or yeah, they'd been relegated by that.
yeah,
Yeah, or yeah, they'd just been relegated, I think. And
yeah. It was just where he was
or
going.
was he? Maybe he was at Everton, but he played for Sunderland before, so I still have that. There's beef between Jordan Pickford and Newcastle's, but I still have to get behind him, like obviously. But I
Yeah.
take your point. Yeah, it is a bit like,
Yeah, and it like the whole he's one of our own chant that Tottenham have. It's just so creased because he's like he was an Arsenal academy player.
my dad,
Like
yeah, my dad always says that to one of my mates, one of his mates, sorry, that is a Spurs fan. He'd always be like, he used to support Arsenal, he used to support
yeah,
Arsenal, Harry Kane, he used to
well,
support.
I mean he was on our books at one point. Like he was our player, so
Oh,
it is quite funny.
you could make a massive portfolio of all the people that Arsenal had on the books and let
Yeah,
go.
yeah. I mean we apparently we were close to signing Ronaldo, and then
Ibra,
Fergie gave him a
Ibra.
house and stuff. Ibra, well, he didn't come for training, did he?
There,
No,
there were
yeah.
talks or something like that.
Yeah, no, because Wenger said, "Oh, come over to training. You can have a trial." And Zlatan said, "Zlatan does not do trials," and he's just like, "Okay." Yeah, there's so many players. I I wish Wenger would just like release like a book of short stories of all the signings that he's nearly got.
Oh, Arsene Wenger could like even just not even just an autobiography, but just a book on his time at Arsenal.
Yeah, yeah,
You could do that'd be such an interesting read.
yeah. I,
I'd love
I,
to.
I think he either did or it's coming out. He's
Oh, I'd
doing
love to.
an autobiography.
I'd like that'd be an interesting read.
Yeah, no, he's had a very
He's seen
interesting
it all,
career.
man. In terms of the Premier League, like he's seen it all pretty much. He's been there for.
Yeah, he lived through like a couple huge like not revolutions like evolutions of the Premier League. So obviously, he came in and brought the whole like eating food like good food and not drinking and stuff, that whole culture over. But then he also saw the Premier League completely shift with the amount of money being put into it,
Oh,
which
exactly.
is a
Yeah.
huge shift that I feel like a lot of people our age don't really deep how big that is. Like, imagine you went back to like when Wenger moved to Arsenal and just told him, "Oh, by the way, bloody Harry Maguire is going to go for 85 million." Like, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's mad to think that was it like in the mid 90s, like 96 or whatever it was. Alan Shearer, like 15 million,
Yeah,
like that in like in about a decade's time would get you Jordan Ibe.
yeah,
You know what I'm
exactly.
saying? Like it's
Yeah,
obviously you got to take in inflation as well and stuff, but
yeah, yeah. No,
it's
still,
mental. It's
yeah,
mental, man.
yeah. And Shearer's like a pretty average striker for 15 million. It's decent.
Oh yeah, Shearer, all the good bang average, mate.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he's definitely like top 20 strikers of the Premier League.
I'd say him and Henry in the elite tier. It's just them
Yeah.
two. Like
No,
Henry just an unbelievable like technically player, but Shearer just an unbelievable goal scorer.
yeah.
And
I love.
Shearer's goal tally would be higher if like because he
hadn't got
played in
injured so much.
Also, he had the season before the Premier League was created.
Oh,
Playing in
really?
the top
Yeah.
division, he scored a decent amount of goals in that season as well. So yeah, and he had injuries, and he played for us.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
so I think you got to. Whereas as well, Shearer's last season, like Shearer never really properly tailed off that badly. Whereas like say Henry, like he did tail off a bit towards the end, and he wasn't.
Well, like when he went to LA Galaxy, you're talking about.
Yeah, and he did come back to Arsenal for a bit. He wasn't terrible, but he wasn't like, you know.
Oh no, he scored the legendary Leeds goal when he came
No,
back.
that's
Though.
what I
You
mean. Like he
never
wasn't
forget that.
awful, but he like
Yeah.
it wasn't quite the same. Where Shearer, at least, even towards his end days, he wasn't as good, but he was still Premier League quality.
Yeah.
Like he was still
I,
starting in line.
I just love having an agenda against Shearer because I know so many people, normally people who support smaller clubs as well, are just so passionate about Shearer because like the way he got so many goals playing for Newcastle, like people are so passionate about him. I love triggering people about it, and also Omri was a better player in my opinion.
Well, Henry, yeah, as a player, like Henry was technically a better player, but like in terms of as a striker, like the main thing with the striker is, for the most part, depending on the system, is to score goals. And he
Yeah,
just scored from all over the pitch. Like he could take free kicks, Shearer, he could penalties. He just had everything to his game, like in the air. Like
yeah,
he wasn't skillful per se, but he was in terms of
yeah,
scoring goals, he could score from anywhere pretty much. And Henry
yeah.
could as well, to be fair. And
Yeah,
Henri was
Henry
just
had that
unreal on the ball.
swagger about him, though,
Yeah,
didn't he?
Henri was unreal. Like I think him
Yeah,
him and Shearer are like in the elite tier. I don't think there's anyone that'll ever come
yeah.
close to him. Like Aguero, his quality, and Rooney was as well, but just not
They're
like.
they're equally as poor pundits, though. I don't particularly like either of them as either of them as
I
pundits.
think Shearer's I think Shearer's a decent pundit.
I don't particularly
He's
like them.
not he's not like.
Honestly, the only pundits I actually like are Gary Neville and Jamie Carragher.
Yeah, it's a lot of pundits. Like, the problem I always find with pundits, from my perspective, is a lot of them just don't know much about teams outside the top six. And it's just quite embarrassing
Yeah,
hearing them talk about certain
I
teams.
I think with pundits they put too much stress on them being an ex-footballer from maybe one of the teams that are playing. I think it'd be really interesting if they just got like someone like a sports scientist and someone like who really knew like loads of stats and like really understood the game on like a different level to a footballer. Obviously, bring a footballer on there who could be like, oh, in the changing room they're all going to be so worried and stuff. But if you want to talk about figures and stuff, like someone who actually studies it and someone who actually understands the science behind it all would be really interesting to bring on.
Yeah, I
Because
suppose.
you
Yeah.
have someone like Michael Owen who says the most plain shit. And it's the same with what's his name, Jamie Redknapp. Jamie Redknapp's crap as well.
Jamie
He'll
Redknapp,
say
Jamie
he'll
Redknapp's
say
very
something
hit
and then
and
just put it
miss.
onto another pundit.
Yeah, Jamie Redknapp's very hit and miss. I mean, like sometimes he makes some sound points, and other times you're just like, wow,
No,
like it's just
he'll
Jesus.
say something and be like, yeah. So I think that was a pretty good goal. What do you think about that, Jermaine? And it's just like, what? I like Jermaine Genius because he's always sad when Tottenham lose.
Jermaine Genius is another one. Like he sometimes makes some very good points, and then other times you're like, "What are you on, mate?" I find that with a lot of pundits. I don't. And a lot of them, they quite often do talk sense, but then other times you're like,
What,
"What are you on?"
what are you even
It's
saying?
inconsistency. I think with a lot of these
Yeah.
pundits, in my
I
opinion.
suppose they do have to talk for a long time about every single game, and some games just don't have that much to be said about.
Well,
Like
yeah,
a like
exactly.
a 0-0 Brighton Burnley is a pretty like, oh yeah, so Burnley defended and Brighton didn't score.
Speaking of Jermaine Genius, there's that classic clip where like was it Spurs got like played off the park, but like was it Chelsea in like the FA Cup, and he was like saying how Spurs were really hard done by, like all the other
Oh
punters
yeah,
just like,
yeah,
"What are you on, mate?" It was so funny.
yeah, yeah. Well, I feel like we've given people a nice break from the
Yeah.
harsh reality of 2020.
Oh, definitely.
Um, yeah, like it is nice to just mentally escape to a time when life was a lot simpler.
Exactly. Yeah.
Mate, I don't even know what I would have done if coronavirus existed back in secondary school.
Oh, I would. I think I would have just been stuck. I would have been on my Xbox all day probably.
Yeah, to be fair, I would have done nothing. I probably would have enjoyed it, to be
I would have
honest.
been busting out Ultimate Team in career mode, whereas now I just
Yes,
bust out.
trust me.
Whereas now I just bust out career mode.
Yeah, yeah, no, interesting and developing time, and football did dictate a lot of it back then. Um, yeah, I'm definitely glad that football's coming back.
As am
Definitely,
I.
yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I've been the box.
And I have been the beard.
Take care, guys.